This podcast is produced by the Harwood Productions Podcast Network. To learn more about the network and to find more of our shows, visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com.
Now, if you're someone who likes that kind of subtle caramel brown sugar flavor, you have got to try these chewy brown sugar blondies. Well, first we have to get our pan ready, and you can use an 8 or a 9-inch square pan, and then go ahead and spray it with a little bit of the baking spray. It's the kind that has flour in it. It really helps things not stick. But then to help it not stick even more, I like to make a sleeve of parchment. So I just cut a piece of parchment that's the width of the pan, and I put it in there, kind of fold the edges over, and then I give it one more little spritz with the baking spray. Now, these blondies are made on the stove in a saucepan, so I like to get all my ingredients measured out and ready to go. So the first thing we have to do is measure out 1.5 cups of brown sugar. Then we're going to get 1 egg and go ahead and crack that in a little bowl. And then it's time to get our dry ingredients together. So I'm going to measure out 1 cup of flour, and then normally I put this in a little bowl, but there's not that much of the dry ingredients. So what I'm going to do is on my little measuring cup of flour, I'm then going to put just on top of it very carefully a teaspoon of baking powder and just a little pinch of salt. I'm just going to let that all sit on top of the flour. Then it's time to get the pecans ready. Now, I have whole pecans that I keep in my freezer, so I do need to chop those up. Now, I don't want them to be super fine, but I would say kind of a medium chop. You know, if you keep your nuts that you use for cooking and baking in your freezer, they last a lot longer. Sometimes if you leave them in your pantry, they can go rancid on you. So that's why I keep everything like this in the freezer. But just go ahead and chop them up into sort of a medium chop. You'll notice I have some bigger pieces and some smaller pieces. But at the end, what I need is 1/2 cup of chopped pecans. Then I'm going to go over to the stove, and in a medium-sized saucepan, I'm going to put in 1/2 cup of butter. And I want to have my heat turned on just to medium. I don't want this to be really hot because I don't want the butter to, burn or melt too quickly, or the brown sugar to burn. So keep it on a medium heat. And then when the butter is pretty well melted, then it's time to go ahead and add your brown sugar. Now, while it's still on this medium heat, use your heat-resistant spatula and just stir that up. We kind of want to get that brown sugar to all melt into the butter. Now, once the brown sugar's melted, I turn off the heat, I slide the pan off to the side, and then I'm going to go ahead and add my flour, baking powder, and salt. And I'm going to start stirring because I'm going to immediately add my egg, and I don't want that egg to sit there. And then I'm going to add the pecans, and then it's just all about mixing it all together. And then at the very, very end, we want to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And the reason we add the vanilla at the end is that if it's cooking still, you'll lose a lot of the potency of the flavor. So we don't want to do that. Now, once you get everything all mixed together, then it's time to take it over to our prepared pan, and you just use your spatula and you scrape all of that out into the pan. Now you'll notice this is a really, really thick batter, so it's not going to move itself in the pan. So you have to take your spatula and push it out to all 4 corners and all 4 edges. You want it to be as level as you can possibly get it. Then we're going to take these and we're going to put them in a 350-degree oven for 20 minutes. Now when they come out of the oven, they will have raised a little bit and they should be this nice golden brown. So immediately put them on a rack and then grab a toothpick just to test in the center, make sure they're done through. There should be no creaminess on the toothpick. And then we're going to go ahead and take a knife and just run it along the two sides that don't have any parchment. We want to make sure that that releases easily. And then let it sit for 10 minutes. And then once 10 minutes is up, we can go ahead and lift up with our sleeve and let those sit right on the rack to cool the rest of the way. So after I'd say, half an hour or an hour, you can go ahead and lift these onto the cutting board. See how easy it is to move these when you have that sleeve. And the first thing people want to do is start cutting, on the sides, but I always start right in the middle and go ahead and I take a big, one of my big knives, cut through the center, and then I can cut each half in half. And that way you get some fairly uniform size pieces. Now you could cut these into many different shapes. You could do diamonds or, whatever you like, but I'm just going to go ahead and cut these into some squares. Well, these brown sugar blondies are so luscious and chewy on the inside, and look at those pieces of pecan. They're just fantastic. Well, if you want to give these a go, just go to our website and you can get the recipe there. I'll see you next time.